Welcome back to Grounded Spirits Podcast, a place where we're learning how to stay rooted while flying high. I'm your host, Laura Lynn, and my third eye is tingling, so I feel like that's a good omen to start the show. Today we're going to be talking about the Halls of Amenti. This is Tablet 2 of the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, the Atlantean. The last episode was way too long, so I'm just trying to jump right in. Hopefully we'll even get to Tablet 3. We'll see how it goes. So, just straight reading it. Deep in Earth's heart lie the halls of Amenti. So this really reminds me of Journey to the Center of the Earth, where there's like this other world underneath the world. And so it seems like that's like kind of what he's talking about here. Deep in the Earth's heart lie the halls of Amenti. And if you remember from last week, the halls of Amenti, it's like in Hercules, where it's like the souls are in the river. That's how he talks about it. But like it's like a good thing to be in the halls of Amenti. Like he's not scared to go into the souls, the river of the souls type thing. The next line is, far 'neath the islands of sunken Atlantis, halls of the dead and halls of the living, bathed in the fire of the infinite all. So that's pretty cool. So he's saying, so if Atlantis sunk and went to like the center of the earth, he's saying it's like even a step further. And that the halls of the dead and the halls of the living, so it's like a place where they can come together. But what's interesting is that the D in dead is capitalized, but the L in living is not. So maybe it's saying that it's kind of like when you write God, the G is capitalized because it's part of this like infinite source. And I kind of see that with this dead. Then the next part is the bathe in the fire of the infinite all. So this is like very much source, where you're going back to the light, like back to source, where you're bathed in the fire of the infinite all. How cool. So like all of our souls will eventually go back to source. Going to the next verse. Far in a past time, lost in the space-time, the children of light look down on the world, seeing the children of men in their bondage, bound by the force that came from beyond. Knew they that only by freedom from bondage could man ever rise from the earth to the sun. So I'm going to take this line by line. So the first thing that I think about when I read this is the movie Soul. It's a Disney movie. And these are the children of light, are the souls. So if you remember the movie, all the souls, it's like an open pit, and they're all like looking down onto earth, and then they jump, and that's how the soul gets into the mother's belly, and obviously so far in a past time. So it's like something that happened in the past. So we've all been there. We've all done that, where we've had to jump, be children of light, where we're looking down on everybody on earth, and then we get to be part of them. Lost in the space-time. So space and time doesn't exist up there. You could be there for what feels like 10 minutes, could be 100 years down here type thing. If you think about The Good Place, it's like a Jeremy Bearimy, like it just goes loops and loops, where it's like really lost in space-time. There's no such thing as it. The children of light look down on the world, seeing the children of men in their bondage, bound by the force that came from beyond. So what I research is the connections between the soul, mind, body, and spirit. And so that's like what I'm seeing here with this, that the children of men, so that's just humans in their bondage, bound by the force that came from beyond. I think it's like the power of the mind, and like from beyond, so this is kind of like how Descartes puts it, where he says like we have the soul and the body, and the mind is that union. So it's something that gets created naturally in a way, because the soul is its own thing, and then the body is its own thing, and like the coming togetherness of it created something new. And if you think about it, if we go back to the way that God was created, it's very much the same thing. It's God needed to separate who God was compared to the Holy Spirit, which is everything, which is darkness. By God separating himself from her, their union, now that they're separated, the things that they have in common are humans, which is what Jesus is. And Jesus is human and divine, but so are we. So that's like where it all comes together. So that's like kind of what I'm seeing here, that where it says, seeing the children of men in their bondage, bound by the force that came from beyond. So it's like from beyond. It wasn't created. It was just something that naturally happened by these two amalgamation, by these two things becoming amalgamated. So then that's the force. So the mind is what traps us and what makes us feel small. And so the more that we open up our mind, the better that our lives will be, because we'll be able to see the things that we actually care about, because it's our souls that are in jail and the mind is the prison guard. The next line is, I keep messing this one up. Knew they that, it's so weird, right? Knew they that only by freedom from bondage could man ever rise from earth to the sun. Oh my gosh, that's so cool. So they know that the second that their mind is able to integrate with the soul, or the soul can become finally unoppressed. I don't know how better to say that. That's even worse. So let me try that again. So the second that the soul is able to become liberated, where the mind is no longer a tyrant and the two can work together equally, is the day that man will be able to rise from earth to the sun. And what's so cool about that is that earth is body, our bodies are just made of earth, and that's why we get buried, because we're supposed to get returned back to the earth, which is why when I die, I'm going to become a tree. They actually do it, so look it up. It's really cool. But anyway, I'm not telling you to do it for you, by the way, just saying. For me, I really want to go back to the earth in that way and have a tree use me as fuel. I think that's a really cool thing. So from earth, so from the body, so from the physical self, from this meat suit that we have on, to the sun, and so across literature, across culture, across time, the sun is always the soul. Now, looking into my research, actually this was just yesterday, when I realized that the sun isn't the soul. I mean, this is what Thoth is talking about here in this text, but in my research, I've realized that the sun is actually the spirit. It's what gets put out. It's not necessarily the inner flame. The sun, it radiates its rays. Oh my gosh, what's up with me today with my English? But yeah, so if you look at your sun sign, that would be how your spirit is, and your spirit is between your mind and your body. So again, that spirit is that Holy Spirit. So it's that female. So you have the divine feminine and the divine masculine, with the soul. Then we move on to down they descended and created bodies. So this is what he's saying is from the first tablet, that the children of light came down to Atlantis. And what's interesting is I tried to rewatch Atlantis, the Disney one, and I fell asleep. So maybe I'll try it again. But the little parts that I do remember is there's a lot of light, and that these, I forgot the main girl's name, but when she's little, her mom gets lifted up into this spaceship kind of thing. And so maybe that's what these children of light are. Because it says, down they descended and created bodies, taking the semblance of man as their own. The masters of everything said after their forming. And so we'll say what they said right now, but But the fact that they're masters of everything because they already know everything, they've already seen everything. And what's interesting is I always thought it was just like my imagination, but maybe I was channeling something where it's kind of like a movie theater where you could go and look at anybody's life or anybody's thing, that like when you are like one of those little souls from the movie Soul, like you're just like a kid, but you also can remember all of your past lives. So that's why it's like the masters of everything is that they don't forget. They actually can remember everything. And this actually comes up in The Good Place, where they asked to remember all of the times that they were together. So now let's see what they said. The masters of everything said after their forming, "We are they who were formed from the space dust." Oh my gosh, so that comes up a lot too, that humans are made of dust. It comes up in the Bible a lot, like you're made of dust, it can turn you to dust, all that kind of stuff. Partaking of life from the infinite all, living in the world as children of men, like and yet unlike the children of men. So he's saying like these soul, like they remember everything, so they are like us, but they're also not like us because they know who they are. But what's interesting is that this also kind of sounds like an alien invasion, like if like it's kind of where all the ideas about aliens could come from, this kind of thing where it's actually not that scary. It's just a soul remembering when they come down. But I could see how it could be spun into alien stuff because it's like they're coming down, created bodies, like resembling men, masters of everything, partaking of life from the infinite all. That's more of like with the soul stuff, like that they remember everything, that they are source and they remember it all. So actually he would probably say that Jesus is one of them. Living in the world, children of men, like and unlike the children of men. All right, verse 4 goes, "Then for a dwelling place far 'neath the earth crust, blasted great spaces they by their power, spaces apart from the children of men, surrounded them by forces and power, shielded from harm they, the halls of the dead." So the way that I'm reading this is that maybe it's the children of light who were the ones who created like the world within the world. Blasted great spaces by their power apart from the children of men, that they had their own like secret society under the earth's crust. And then that they were surrounded by these forces and these powers, but that they were shielded from harm. I don't know if it's by the halls of the dead or because of, or like shielded from the halls of the dead. But we'll talk about that in verse 5. "Side by side then placed they other spaces, filled them with life and light from above, builded they then the halls of Amenti." Okay, so I was right. It is that the children of light were the ones who made this place. So maybe they made it as like a portal between the two worlds. But the first part is that they're just like bringing in people. I don't know if they mean like humans, like children of men, or they're just more children of light. Life and light are both capitalized. So maybe it's like bringing in God's light or like that inner light. Maybe this is all metaphorical too. That like under the earth's crust, the earth could just be us. Because remember, in chapter, I'm going to keep saying them, but verse 2, he says the man could ever rise from earth to the sun, so the earth, we talked about it being the physical, sun being the spiritual or like the soul. So maybe this is talking about that. Descended, they created these bodies. So it's like we became more body, had like these carnal desires instead of trying to seek God. And I think that's what I read a lot about with the Shushong that I was talking about. That it's like a devotion to God without even considering who God is. it's like this blind faith. And I don't think that anything should be in blind faith. I think that something has to meet you halfway. And I think that by doing the inner work, you do meet God. And so that you can trust and you can surrender. And you can't, abandon all control, same thing. So maybe it is talking about the inside. So then, for a dwelling place far beneath the earth, beneath the crust, blasted great spaces. Okay, we talked about that one already. So, side by side place they other spaces. I don't know what that means. Is it that different children of light came together and they each had their own property under the earth's crust and it's side by side? Fill them with life and light. I'm not sure. Builded they then the halls of Amenti. So what I'm thinking with this is that maybe this is how we became more human in a way. So let me talk a little bit about this. Maybe it was that children of men were like animals, where... No, but I disagree with that, because I have dogs, and you know that they have divinity in them. Their souls are divine. But maybe in that time they weren't. I think that that's the way that biology, evolution works. 10,000 years ago, we may have been different. So that's what I'm thinking. Maybe that's what this means. They're trying to cut into the earth to bring in the light of God. So that's the soul coming in. So maybe it's not even about remembering everything. It's just a matter of they have that light, that inner light that comes from God. And that now, that's the reason now, 10,000 years later, now that's what we do. And that the halls of Amenti is the way that we could astral project, or we could visit other dimensions if we wanted to and learn to. That they might dwell eternally there, living life to eternity's end. So yeah, I think that's it's talking about the soul inhabiting its meat suit for the first time. 30 and 2 were there of the children. 30 and 2. Interesting. I don't know why they said it like that. Sons of light, who had come among men, seeking to be free from the bondage of darkness, those who were bound by the force from beyond. So if we think about it the same way that I was saying before, who were bound by the force from beyond, that would be the mind. Seeking to be free from the bondage of darkness. So if the mind is the one that's controlling everything, then the soul has no say. So the soul is in darkness. And I think that's kind of where we are at today. Look at the movie industry. No one can come up with original ideas anymore. Everything has been so played out, and we just keep going back to doing remakes. We really can't think of anything else. It's missing soul. If you go into classrooms and everyone's so lifeless. And some schools, they still have the traditional rows. It's missing soul. You need to have life. If you just make boxes of everything, you have to fill it with something. So that's kind of what they're saying here. Side by side placed they other spaces. Fill them with life and light from above. That you can, if you use your mind too much, if you're just all about reason, you're just going to have boxes, nothing to fill it with. So that's what they're trying to do here with the children of light. So builded they the halls of Amenti. Oh, we're over here. My bad. So yeah, so that's it. Sons of light, who had come among men. So that's what we were talking about earlier. 30 and 2 were there of the children. I wonder if 32 is a Fibonacci sequence, because if it is, it's going to be a game changer. Let me look it up. So I tried looking it up, started to see if there's anything symbolic about the number 32, and nothing came up. But the only thing that I can think about is because of the wording of it. 30 and 2 were there of the children. So maybe it means that there were 32 souls that came down with this divine ability. Or that he's prophesizing that there will be 32, and so Jesus would be one of them. I even looked into like Jesus's death date, like how old he was, and it was like 33. So, and the Fibonacci sequence would be 34. So, okay, verse 6. Deep in the halls of life grew a flower, flaming, expanding, driving backward the night. So it's interesting I don't know why I keep referencing Disney right now, but with the wisteria, I believe that's what it was called. Or maybe it wasn't, but that there's like this flower that is constantly growing and can get really big. But then I also see that like with the halls of life, that as a human that is alive, that you are a flower that needs to be tended to, and that it needs flaming so that it can expand. And then driving backward in the night. I'm not really sure what that part means. Backward in the night. So maybe it's like succumbing to the darkness, or like allowing, or like not being scared anymore of the darkness because you are so beautiful. Maybe. I think I skipped one in there, so I think we're on verse 8. Placed in the center, a ray of great potence, life-giving, light-giving, filling with power all who came near it. There are so in our plant magic book that we read, the series I read before this book, there were so many references about how flowers represent life and how like the growing thing, everything I was just saying. But now here, placed at the center. So I'm thinking it's like your solar plexus. It's kind of like what I'm thinking about. And I feel like the solar plexus does kind of like a flower as far as like the shape of it, or like the symbols of it. So maybe a ray of great potence, life-giving, light-giving. So I think that these are all references to the solar plexus. With power, filling with power all who came near it. Yeah, it's definitely solar plexus. Place they around it thrones, 2 and 30. Interesting. So why would they change that? Instead of 32, now it's 230. Interesting. Place they around it thrones. Places for each of the children of light, placed so that they were bathed in the radiance, filled with the life from the eternal light. So I figured it all out. In Plant Magic, the book that we talked about before, we learned that the water lily was really special, especially to the Indian culture, because it was known as this flower that was so white and pure and beautiful that was coming out from the dark, like nasty water or soil or whatever. And I slightly remember it talking about like the flower being up in heaven and then the roots are hanging down for us. So correct me if I'm wrong, but it kind of sounds like it's the same thing here. So that flower is placed at the center of the universe, of heaven. And then they place thrones around it, 2 and 30. And I think the reason why they switched it was because the 2 could be the divine masculine and the divine feminine. So the Holy Spirit and God. And then the 30 are the children. And maybe the Holy Spirit and God have incarnated the way that Jesus did. We don't know. You know, what if they just kept it low key and didn't want the whole world to know, like Jesus? Maybe. And so they would still be considered the children of light. So, just a theory. I could be wrong. Places for each of the children of light, placed so that they were bathed in the radiance, filled with the life from the eternal light. There, so now we're on to the next verse. There, time after time, place they their first created bodies, so that they might be filled with the spirit of life. 100 years out from each 1,000 must the life-giving light flame forth on their bodies, quickening, awakening the spirit of life. So I'm curious if they have the same body, because it says 100 years out of each 1,000 that they must come back. Must the life-giving light flame forth on their bodies. Yeah, so they have to be there. So that's how the thing starts, right? It says, there time after time place they their first created bodies, so that they might be filled with the spirit of life. So this reminds me of in Dr. Estes' book, The Women Who Run with the Wolves, where you have the wolf woman who has to search for all the skeletal pieces of a wolf. And in the story, the skeleton refers to the soul, and the wolf is the wild woman inside. And we have to find all the pieces of our soul, so then the wild woman can come alive. And so what she does is that she sings over the bones, and then they turn into a wolf, and then from there they turn into a woman. So that's kind of the vibe that I'm getting here, like this. So when they created their first bodies, they had to sit with the flower so that they could be filled with the spirit of life. So here it'd be the light coming down on them. And then with the wolf woman, it was her voice, the song was from spirit. And she even says that song is from is communication for spirit, and language is the communication for humans. And so 100 years out of each of the 1,000, they must come back. So it kind of reminds me of Pops from Regular Show, where he has to be part of these I don't want to say communions, but part of these different groups, and so that he's able to keep his body. Moving on to the next verse. There in the circle from eon to eon sit with the great masters. Nope, I messed that up. Sit the great masters, living a life not known among men. So they only reincarnated once, and then they stayed up there? So it says, there in the circle from eon to eon sit the great masters, living a life not known among men. There in the halls of life they lie sleeping. Free flows their soul through the bodies of men. Oh, that's interesting. So now the imagery that I'm getting in my head, and I don't know if it's a 32 thing or not, but the flower of life are the different circles. Like what I was saying before, when God first separated himself from the Holy Spirit, they were these circles. So these two circles, then you have the union in the middle, that's Jesus, and then it keeps going like that, and you have all these circles that go on forever. And so it's that they're lying, and the center really does look like a flower. That's cool. And then here we go. There in the circle from eon to eon sit the great masters. So God and the Holy Spirit, the one who started all of this, is there. But that they lie sleeping, free flows their soul through the bodies of men. So then that's why we each have. The more that circle expands is the more nuanced. So actually, this reminds me of a thought that I had today, that if you took calculus, you would know Riemann sum. So we're trying to find the area under a curve. But the thing is that it's curved, so how can we take an area of a curve? We only know how to do area of a rectangle. So obviously to do an area of a rectangle, you do length times width, multiply them, then you have your area. So what they did is that they kept making smaller and smaller and smaller rectangles to then be able to measure, but then you would always be a little bit under or a little bit over depending on how you drew your rectangles for that space under the curve. And so they said, oh, we'll just keep going down to infinity. So then it does account for every little bit under the curve, and that's how you get an integral. With that same thought, it's kind of like what we're doing right now with knowledge. We're hyper specializing so that we can know everything about this world so that we can control it. That's the only reason for education, is so that we can learn enough so that we can control and manipulate our surroundings when it's wrong. Because if we listen to our soul, like I was saying earlier, that we just are we're all missing a little bit of soul, then, and we did it from our hearts, this is a tough lesson that the universe has been trying to teach me. And it's been so difficult to do. Like, it won't let me work unless it's coming from the heart. And like, as far as like my writing. And yeah, it's been really hard because every time that I'm trying to work, it's like, oh, but like, where's your hearts in this? Because like, I'm trying to put myself more into my work instead of being an outsider the way that we're raised in academia to do. If we're too close, then it's not real academia. If it's too personal, then it's not quote unquote real academia. But I'm trying to break that down and to put myself in every piece of my work. And so my dissertation is called The Soul of a Polymath, because I'm going to be studying the souls of polymaths. But it's also everything about me, the essence of me is in this project. And so me being a polymath, it's my soul. I kind of got sidetracked there. But the whole point is that free flows the souls into the bodies of men, that we all have a little bit of that soul. The next verse says, time after time, while their bodies lie sleeping, incarnate they in the bodies of men, teaching and guiding upwards and onwards and upwards, out of the darkness into the light. And I think that that's what everybody's goal is, that comes down. No one wants to do bad, just circumstances that make us do bad things, or needs. I've really been thinking a lot about that too. Oh, I never finished my point about the Riemann sum. My bad. So you get the integral. So it's kind of like by hyper specializing is that we're trying to understand everything. But the thing is that we're never going to be able to get to that integral part without the soul. Like, the soul will allow us to do the integral by going to infinity, because where is infinity? It's in the soul. And that's what we see here with Thoth, where he's saying, where he says, like, infinite of all. Yeah. Partaking of life from the infinite all. So it's like with source, you know? So that was my point with that. But yeah, so everybody wants to be a good person. Everybody wants to do the right thing. And so we are slowly but surely inching forward. And you may look around and say, oh, well, everything is so horrible, like blah, blah, blah. But like, how could this possibly be good? But I think that we have to see it just like how we see it in our personal lives, where we have to have low lows to be able to have high highs. And the more that we live, the longer that we live, where we can get deeper and higher highs and lower lows, and it just kind of keeps going like that. Because why would you want your song to just be like monotone? a song that just monotone. I don't know why I got all quiet. But when a song just gets monotone, like there's nothing interesting about it. We need to have the high highs and low lows. And so if right now it's a low low, but it's going to lead us to a high high, then that's why we all agreed on it, because the reality that we see is the reality that we all agreed upon. So, like looking back, I'm telling you, all I've been doing is reading Shushon today. So I'm going to keep bringing her up. But I was looking at her chart, and she already had so much control. All of her personal planets are in Capricorn in the first house. She already had so much control over her life. But the fact that Saturn had to be in opposition to her moon, like, that's what killed her. She's like, I'm good with control, good with restraint. Like, I'm good, but like Daddy Saturn, but when Saturn, he took it too far and he stole her heart, and she hated it, and she was in despair for such a long time until she found books. Books are what saved her life. But anyway, but I think that by looking at her chart, I'm noticing that we wouldn't have gotten this work if she wasn't in these conditions. And it's like, we kind of have to suffer sometimes in order for greatness to fall upon us. But the thing that we can't do is to be stuck in it. And when there's an out, to not take it because we're scared, because we were stuck in the suffering for so long. And that was her mistake. And so I'm telling everybody, so that we don't make the same mistakes, we learn from others, that if you've been having a hard time, which I'm sure, well, most of us are, like, it hasn't been easy these last 4 years for anybody, that, like, good things are coming, and that we can turn this around. And everything that we learned through COVID by being by ourselves and having to sit with our thoughts, like, only good can come from it. And so to really, like, dig deep and to make something positive out of it, like, use that creativity, for instance. And then that's the way that we are all teaching and guiding onward and upward out of the darkness and into the light. On to the next verse. There in the hall of life, filled with their wisdom, known not to the races of man, living forever neath the cold fire of life, sit the children of light. Times there are when they awaken, come from the depths to be lights among men, infinite among finite men. So the imagery that was popping into my head while reading this was that maybe it's like that. So actually I looked it up with the flower of life, and it's 36 circles. Well, it says 19, but then you're able to see 36. So I still don't know where they're getting this 32 from, but if we were to continue with that flower of life, it kind of seems like that's like the base of spiritual life, and it all just kind of like emanates from there, and that it's underneath the earth's core to then like bring up the light, kind of like a hot pool, or how do you say it, like the natural springs, the natural hot springs. Because it's like the fire of life, that's where the children of light sit. Times are when they awaken, but that they are the infinite among the finite men. So I think it's just like an energy source that can just like keep coming up. The next verse goes, he who by progress has grown from the darkness, lifted himself from the night into light, free is he made of the halls of Amenti, free from the flower of light and of life, guided he then by wisdom and knowledge, passes from men to the master of life. And so this reminds me of the dark night of the soul that we talk a lot about in the spiritual world. But I found the source, you guys. It was so cool. So I was reading Gabrielle Souchon, and in it, she was talking about, she referenced St. John of the Cross, and I had my quinceañera there, and so I started reading his stuff, and he, oh my gosh, let me tell you, he describes the dark night of the soul perfectly. And it's really cool because at the time I was eating some pistachios, and this is the best way that I can give you the metaphor, because at first I didn't agree, because he was like, God like empties out your vessel, and that's why it's a dark night of the soul, because you have to like figure out who you are like when you empty everything out. No, actually that's a lie. You're not trying to figure yourself out. Like, you can just walk away, like you are one with God. You are good. You don't have to think anymore. But the best way I could, like I said, describe it is like by eating a pistachio, where you break the shell. So the shell could be around the heart or around the soul, which the heart is in the soul. It's like one of the components. We can get into that later though. But, and you let God eat you. You let God eat your soul or eat your heart, because it's a part of him. It is him. So it's like, it was freely given to you so that you could freely give it back. And when you give it back, then that's the true surrender. That's you doing like the whole Jesus take the wheel type thing, you know? But that's what is being talked about here in this verse. So he who by progress has grown from the darkness. So where you were so in the darkness that you had to lift yourself up from the night into the light, to make yourself accessible to God, because God's not going to pluck you out of the darkness. You have to get out of it by yourself, because that is what builds your character. And that's what I was saying, like with Souchon earlier, with the whole suffering thing, that we have to go through this dark period so that A, we know what it was like for people who are in that dark period, and B, so that we know never to go back there. The next one is, free is he made. So I think that's like what they mean by the halls of Amenti. So in my book Monterey, I talk about this river, that the whole time the river's telling me like surrender, surrender, and I'm like, no. And so like, what if that was like the halls of Amenti, where it's a river that runs through, where it says like you're free is he made of the halls of Amenti. So you're free because now you are one and the same with God, with the halls of Amenti, with like the surrender. Like you no longer have control of your life, but it's like a good thing. And today I was re-listening to The Journey to Ixtlan by Carlos Castañeda, and he was talking about dreams, and he's like, no, like, why would I want dreams? Why would I want power in my dreams? He basically, Don Juan was trying to teach him how to lucid dream. And then that hit me, like, that's been me. I know how to lucid dream, but I choose not to, because I enjoy seeing how things pan out. I like handing over the control there. But then in my real life, I had to control every aspect of every person that I knew. And like, that's not fair either, you know? So like, what I've realized is that everything is just flipped, and all you have to do is flip it back, and then you're solid. And so maybe that's like where the ideas like for Freaky Friday come from too, where things are just flipped. They're not in the place they're supposed to be, and you have to like unflip it. So for me, it's that instead of trying to control everything in my real life, I have to trust God. And then I have to flip that with what's going on in my dreams, to use the power that I have in my dreams. And yeah, that's basically it. Use my power in my dreams and let God control out here, instead of letting God control my dreams and using my power out here. Yeah, so hopefully that helps you. That's the only reason why I tell these anecdotes. I hope you know. Free is he of the halls of Amenti. So if you're one with God, you don't have to fear it. Free of the flower of light and of life, because now you've cracked the code. Now you don't need to get your energy from anybody else. You're self-sufficient. You don't have, like how they were saying earlier, to go lie with the spirit of life, that flower. You don't have to do that anymore if you have created your own source. And we have that power by coming back to God, that source, right? Source and source. Guided he then by wisdom and knowledge that you gain through the dark night of the soul, passes from men to the master of life. So now, like, nothing can stop you. You become unstoppable. The other thing that has come across, maybe like in the last 2 weeks, is the way to be unstoppable is to have fun or to make the best of any situation, and to, again, let go of the control, allow the surrender, and just have fun. Like, you don't have to worry about everything getting into its place. You just get to have fun and just allow things to fall into place for you. And so nothing in the world can bring you down if you just think of it that way. Like, just have fun at every moment. Yeah, and then you just make the best of it that way. Of course, that's not to say, oh, just put a smile on and like hide your feelings, like the bad ones. Like, if you're scared, feel scared. If you feel sad, cry, like allow these emotions to come out. But your natural state could be happiness. And then it fluctuates. Like I was saying earlier, if you were just happy all the time, then you would just be conforming. It would just turn into neutral. It's kind of like when someone sprays perfume and you smell it really strongly for the first 30 seconds, and then it's gone. You don't smell it at all anymore. Same thing with happiness. You need to have these ups and downs to be able to enjoy the happiness and to let it ride. And so it's kind of like you keep spraying. So it's kind of like you have to just keep spraying. So you spray and then you don't smell anymore, then it goes into darkness. You spray again and then you get happiness and it goes back down. So it's like that constant need, but I feel like that's important. So in this book called Psychopolitics, the first line of it says something along the lines of, we're always needing to chase freedom. That what we think is freedom, after a while, it turns into a prison. And then you have to go and find the next thing. So you're constantly chasing it. And I think that this is better than what we do with looking at purpose and chasing that. And honestly, the thing is that you don't have to chase anything, because God will do it for you. Like what I was saying earlier, when you truly surrender, when you let God eat your soul as a pistachio, that you don't have to chase freedom, because God will always give you opportunities to feel more and more free. You just have to trust. The next verse goes, there he may dwell as one with the masters, free from the bonds of darkness of night. Remember that bonds again. So here again is bad, but to be free from the bonds of the darkness of night. But the thing is that you are bonded to it because it is a part of you. So the darkness, it's Scorpio, but it's also the moon. If the sun is the light, darkness is the moon. And so it's like your emotions, those deep things that you don't want to think about, that you want to just scarf down, but you can't. You have to deal with your emotions as part of, if you want to have power, you need to have that responsibility. And so if you want power to control your emotions, you need to have the responsibility of dealing with your emotions and allowing every voice inside of you to feel heard, every part of you to have say. Seated within the flower of radiance sit 7 lords from the time-space above us, helping and guiding through infinite wisdom the pathway through time of the children of men. The way that I saw this, the 7 lords would be the chakras. of the body. And so again, like you have like these flowers, it does kind of feel like that, like each of the chakras are blooming inside of you when you do activate them. So that's just like kind of how I took it. Mighty and strange they, veiled with their power, silent, all-knowing. Drawing the life force, different, yet one with the children of men. So now this is starting to sound kind of like Star Wars-y, where like veiled with their power, silent, all-knowing, mighty and strange, drawing on the life force. Different, yet one with the children of men. So like Jedis, they're different, yet one with the children of men. I, different, and yet one with the children of light. Custodians and watchers of the force of man's bondage, ready to loose when the light has been reached. So it's spelled double O, not lose. But I don't know if that's a typo or if that's purposeful. Ready to lose when the light has been reached. I'm not sure. Because it could be to like loosen up like the bondage. I don't know. But maybe it is to lose, because if the man's bondage is their mind, then they do need to lose it when the light has been reached, when you're coming into your soul. First and most mighty sits the veiled presence, Lord of the Lords, the infinite nine, over the other from each of the lords of the cycles. So in numerology we have 9. And I've been told that there are 9 dimensions. But I don't know too much else. But it's just like that number 9. But we do talk about like with like angel numbers. When you see 999, it's the end of a cycle. And so if there are 9 lords, then it's like that's the end of the cycle once we go through all of them. 3, 4, 5, and 6, 7, 8. Each with his mission, each with his powers, guiding, directing the destiny of man. There sit they, mighty and potent, free from all time and space. I am not sure of the significance. Why not start with 1 and 2? Why not do 4 to 9? No clue. The only thing that I thought about right now was that 3, 4, 5, that is a special triangle, like a special right angle triangle. It's part of like the Pythagorean theorem. And so, but I don't think that 6, 7, 8 is. So, I don't know. Not of this world, they, yet akin to it, elder brothers they. From the children of men, judging and weighing, they with their wisdom, watching the progress of light among men. So this verse is kind of reminiscent of Black Adam. It was the Rock movie. And in this one, he's like combating all of these Egyptian gods that have taken over human bodies. And this is kind of what it's sounding a little like to me, like not of this world, yet akin to an elder brother, they of the children of men. So that they're the elder brothers that are going to be teaching the children of men. Judging and weighing, this is like that God stuff. So judging and weighing, so like the Christian God's going to judge you when you go to heaven. The Egyptian God would weigh your heart compared to a feather. So it's like that weighing. It's like where Libra comes like with the scales and stuff. They with their wisdom watching the progress of light among men. So it's like they came down to earth to try to cultivate the light within us. There before them was I, led by the dweller, watched him blend with one from above, and one is capitalized. So, and then this is like a little mini verse. It's just that those 2 lines. But the dweller, remember from last week that he was the one who taught Thoth everything that he knew back at the temple in Atlantis. And so he's got to see him, I'm trying to say blend and mend, and it didn't come out because then like merge popped in there somehow too. But like merge with the one from above. So like an angel or like a heavenly body. Then he, now capital he, so it's like God. It's godlike, so it's definitely divine. Then he came forth, a voice saying, Great art thou, Thoth, among children of men. Free henceforth of the halls of Amenti, master of life among children of men. Taste not of death, except as thou wilt it. Drink thou of life to eternity's end. Henceforth forever is life, thine for the taking. Henceforth is death at the call of thy hand. So basically he's just like welcoming him, and that anything that he wants, he has. Dwell here or leave here when thou desireth. Free is Amenti to the Son of Man, and it's Son, S-U-N, with a capital S. Take thou up life, capital L, is what form thou desireth. Child of the light that has grown among men, choose thou thy work, for all must labor. Never be free from the pathway of light. Never be free from the pathway of light. So again, Thoth has all these choices. He can do whatever he wants. That now that he's made it here, he doesn't have to go into the river of souls. And then it says, child of the light that has grown among men, choose thou thy work. So he's actually calling Thoth a child of light too, huh? So maybe it's like by gaining all of this knowledge, he's able to now be godlike almost, to be a child of the light. But this is the cool part that it says, choose thou thy work, for all must labor, never be free from the pathway of light. And so in my Carlos Castaneda books, Don Juan says to always choose the path of the heart, that there's no point in going down a path if it has no heart. And that's part of what my job title is. My self-proclaimed job title is being a cartographer of the inner world. Like, I want to build out a map for people to follow so that they know that their path has heart, and to know like what part. And so that's what I was saying with my Ornellian inner chart or inner map. That's what that's going. So the whole point is that he's saying the same thing. So never be free from the pathway of light, whereas Don Juan says never be free from the pathway of the heart. Not in those exact words. But then the whole point of like, we need to still choose a work. And so that's like where I come in, like, especially here in Grounded Spirits, like that's like my main thing is like, I want people to know that the job that you choose to do, it needs to come from the heart. It needs to feel like you're just wasting time doing whatever. Like today, I felt like I was doing like wasting so much time, digging up like who Gabrielle Souchon's publisher was, and like where, like, how did she even get published? Like looking up all these things, but like I learned so much about them because of it, and it felt like a waste of time. At the time, like I felt like I was just like goofing around, but it actually led to something really cool. So like that's the point that I'm trying to say to you is like your work should feel like you're just goofing around when then like actual work gets done. You're not actually just goofing around, even though it feels like it. Like it should feel like you're playing when work is actually getting done. And that's what they say, like what is it? Love what you do and you'll never work a day in your life. It's like along those lines, but like getting deeper and like saying like you should be playing and getting your work done. Or like your work gets done by playing. That's a better way of saying it. Okay, so this is wild. There are only 6 pages in this PDF that I have. That if you want, email me and I'll email it to you. It's just groundedspirits@gmail.com. So there's only 6 pages in this second tablet, The Halls of Amenti. We've only done the first 3 pages, and it's already been an hour. So I think I'm going to stop it here. I'll do the part 2, hopefully tomorrow, fingers crossed. If not, for sure by next week. These emerald tablets are going to be a doozy. But I think it's cool going by it stanza by stanza to really understand what they mean. So thank you so much for sticking along, staying on for the ride of what Thoth is trying to tell us. So we'll finish up the second tablet, The Halls of Amenti, next week. Bye, everybody.